just to play devil's advocate, those who kind of use phrases or words like fascist in order to describe Donald Trump, they're not using it in an academic sense. They're using it in regard to some of the, authoritarian tendencies that we heard about regarding Donald Trump in his first term. And, you can argue, well, there's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of comments from disgruntled former administration officials who claim that Trump said these things behind closed doors. If you want to make that argument, that's fine. But even if, let's give those individuals the benefit of the doubt and just assume that Trump did, in fact, say those things during closed door meetings, it still doesn't rise to the actual definition of a fascist.
What's up, everyone? Today we're diving into Anna Kasparian's appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored. She's claiming to have turned over a new leaf, apologizing for calling Trump voters dumb and even pushing back on the left's favorite buzzwords like fascist and Nazi. But is this a real change of heart or just another attempt to reinvent herself now that the left's policies have blown up in everyone's faces? Let's get into this clip and see which it is.
To be serious, you've made a bit of news recently. We've got a little sot to start with of your reaction to when Trump won in 2016.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah, me too.
I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb. Okay? I think you're fucking dumb. When you vote for someone who openly treats women like second-class citizens, who talks about them as if they're nothing more than a piece of meat, who has been accused of sexually assaulting them, who has been caught on tape talking about groping them and grabbing them by the pussy without consent, yeah, you're an idiot. You're an idiot.
So, Anna, have you moderated your view of Trump voters this time around?
To say the least. That video I am not proud of, I will say that. And, I had a very emotional reaction to news that Trump won in 2016. I was totally blindsided by it. And to be quite frank, I think that attacking voters is one of the worst things you can do.
Oh really, Anna? Took you long enough to figure that out. Let me remind you, back in 2016, you called Trump voters dumb, idiotic, and brainwashed. Now you're acting like you just discovered that people don't like being insulted. Here's the thing, calling millions of Americans names isn't just rude, it's a bad strategy. You think working class folks in Ohio or Wisconsin care about your moral ground standing? Nope, they care about putting food on the table, and they're smart enough to see through the left's nonsense. It's almost funny. Democrats claim to be the party of compassion, but turn into bullies the second you don't vote the way they want.
These are our fellow Americans, regardless of who they vote for or what they think. In order for this great experiment in America to work, we have to respect each other. And so that was 8 years ago. I'd like to think that I've matured since then, and I hope that I can prove that maturity through the work that I do today.
You said 5 days before the election, you posted this, I think, to X, I don't support Trump. I also don't think it's helpful to call him a fascist or a Nazi. Those words actually mean something beyond not liking a candidate. I mean, I completely agree with you, and I respected you for saying that, because actually the over-demonization of Trump, all it did was help him and damage the left anyway. I mean, it was an act of self-harm because most reasonable-minded people went, well, hang on, Hitler killed 12 million people. What are you talking about? And if he was such a terrible fascist, why didn't he behave like a fascist for 4 years when he had the chance? And the truth is he didn't. January 6th was awful, and I wrote that at the time and said it at the time. But other than that, where you could construct an argument for this was the kind of thing you would see in a sort of a banana republic, there's nothing about Trump's first term which screamed fascism to me. And I felt that persistent attack and he's the new Hitler was just ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's insulting for, like, the Jewish community that, of course, was victimized by Hitler. It kind of downplays or minimizes the severity and the brutality of Hitler and what he carried out. But, I think that just to play devil's advocate, those who kind of use phrases or words like fascist in order to describe Donald Trump, they're not using it in an academic sense. They're using it in regard to some of the, authoritarian tendencies that we heard about regarding Donald Trump in his first term. And, you can argue, well, there's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of comments from disgruntled former administration officials who claim that Trump said these things behind closed doors. If you want to make that argument, that's fine. But even if, let's give those individuals the benefit of the doubt and just assume that Trump did, in fact, say those things during closed-door meetings, it still doesn't rise to the actual definition of a fascist, right? I mean, where are the brown shirts? Where is the militarized citizenry that's going to carry out, Trump's dirty deeds? It's a type of hyperbole that I don't think Democrats, and I'm not talking about the voters, I'm talking about Democrats in positions of power, genuinely believed. I think what they did is use tactics of fear and division in order to accumulate votes and support in lieu of having an actual imagination of what this country could be if they implement policies that make the lives of ordinary Americans better. The Democrats have made a deal with the devil, and the devil is their corporate donors.
Now she's finally pulling the curtain back, isn't she? Democrats love to paint themselves as champions of the working class, but in reality, Democrats love to paint themselves as champions of the working class, but in reality, they're just as cozy with the corporate donors as the Republicans they demonize. The only difference is that they use woke buzzwords and fear tactics to distract you from the fact that they've sold out. Policies that hurt American workers, check. Culture wars to divide us, double check. It's all smoke and mirrors, and even Anna seems to be waking up to that now. The question is, how long before she's canceled for saying it out loud?
And since their corporate donors want very specific things for the donations that they're providing to these politicians, and usually that's a policy that does not bode well for American workers, what Democrats tend to do is lean into tactics of fear, or they talk about culture war issues, right? They lean into the culture war. And every election cycle, they get more and more maximalist with what they claim they want to carry out on these culture war topics. And they've gone too far. And I think Americans have kind of fought back against them.
You gave three events that you've referenced, which made you reassess your political alignment. The first one was when you revealed you'd been sexually assaulted by two homeless people in LA in 2022, and you were accused of stigmatizing your unhoused neighbors, which was a staggering response to a woman revealing she'd been sexually assaulted. Tell me about that.
This is sort of where it gets really twisted. Piers Morgan brings up Anna's heartbreaking story about being assaulted while walking her dog. What's the left's response? Do they rally behind her, offer her support? Nope. They accuse her of being a bigot for talking about the homeless crisis. Think about that. A woman opens up about her trauma, and instead of sympathy, the woke mob comes after her. Why? Because she dared to criticize their precious narrative. It's disgusting. The same people screaming "believe women" couldn't care less when the victim doesn't fit their agenda. It's all about ideology over humanity with these people.
Right. I mean, I hate having to relive it, but yeah, I was walking my dog and there were two men coming toward me. But, living in Los Angeles, there is a large homeless population, and I had never been, victimized by anybody before. So I didn't think much of it. As I was bending over to pick up my dog's mess, one of them grabbed me by the hips and with an erection, just started thrusting at me very violently. I was terrified. I was alone. I didn't have a weapon on me. And so, it took a while for me to get over that, because whether I like it or not, I have to walk my dog. Right. Sometimes I have to do it at night, right? And so I had to kind of think about that every single time I was taking my dog out to walk. And so I had just opened up about it on our show, not really thinking that it was going to lead to backlash. I wasn't even looking for sympathy. It was on my mind, and I just talked about it. And it led to just this wave of, you hate homeless people, you're stigmatizing homeless people, don't call them homeless people, they're unhoused, which I don't even understand why unhoused would be better than saying homeless.
And by the way, these are the same people. This is what the left
likes to do.
Right,
they like to change the language instead of actually addressing the issue at hand.
Yeah, and these are the same people who supposedly are there for women, right? And fighting for women and supporting women and believe women, all this kind of thing. But when it actually came to you, they just were prepared to throw you on the horrific bus. And far from treating you as a victim, they almost made you out to be the villain of this story.
They did, but I want to be clear about something. I think that this is a small but incredibly loud and influential faction of the Democratic Party. This is not indicative of all Democrats. This is not indicative of all Democratic lawmakers. This is a small group of activists who like to bully, who like to go to city council meetings, who like to go to various rallies and essentially be loud, be threatening, be aggressive until they get their way. And for far too long, the Democratic Party has been terrified of these little mobs of people, these little mobs of activists, and have basically just carried out what these activists want. And I just think that they need to be a little smarter than falling prey to the whims of various activist groups, because they are not representative of the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans, especially in a state like California, want homeless people to be housed, but they also understand that this issue is far more complicated than the housing first policy of throwing anyone who doesn't have a home into an apartment, right? Because the fact of the matter is we have severe mental health issues out on our streets right now, people who are struggling with severe drug addiction. Some of these people actually do have families to go to or homes to go to. They need a different type of service. They need rehabilitation, not harm reduction, where we're just passing out needles and crack pipes, thinking that it's going to solve the problem.
Finally, someone says it out loud. Passing out free needles and crack pipes isn't compassion, it's enabling. These policies don't just fail, they make the problem worse. Imagine if a doctor treated a broken leg by handing you a pair of crutches and telling you to deal with it. That's exactly what the left is doing with drug addiction. They call it harm reduction, but it's really just harm extension. And let's not forget, this isn't just hurting the addicts, it's destroying communities, driving away business, and making life miserable for families trying to raise their kids. At some point, we've got to stop pretending that enabling self-destruction is any form of a solution.
It has not solved the problem. It has made the lives of these individuals struggling on the streets far worse, and it has also made the lives of hardworking, tax-paying Americans in states like California a lot worse.
Yeah.
When I look at my life right now, and I ask myself, which political party has made my life worse? It's not the Republican Party. Locally speaking, the Democrats have complete control, and they have nearly destroyed my family's livelihood. Okay, we are living in trash and squalor everywhere. And unless the Democratic Party actually acknowledge these issues and solve these issues, rather than stealing our taxpayer money and funneling it to their nonprofit friends, they keep doing this, they're going to keep losing. And I'm going to keep speaking out against them. I don't care how much they hate Trump. I don't care how naughty the Republicans are being. Right now, the people having a negative impact on my life is the Democratic Party, and they need to change their ways.
Boom, there it is. Anna finally admits what we've all been saying for years. The Democrats are making life worse for the ordinary Americans. Trash on the streets, rising crime, skyrocketing costs, and nothing but excuses from the people in charge. And yet they keep funneling your tax dollars into their nonprofit buddies and calling it progress. Here's a question for Anna. If you see the damage the Democrats are causing, why stop at criticizing them? Why not hold them accountable for decades of broken promises? I mean, the writing's on the wall, but she's still hesitant to walk away completely. Guess some habits do die hard.
When we say we want to change the status quo, it doesn't mean we want to live in anarchy. It doesn't mean that we want to have $24 billion of our taxpayer money in California stolen by these nonprofits. It means that we want working people to be rewarded for their hard work. We want affordable housing. We want better working conditions, higher wages, better health care. These are things that Democrats used to purport to want to do. They don't do any of it anymore. And so I'm done with them until they change their ways.
So, is Anna Kasparian really waking up to the failures of the left, or is this just damage control because she's finally feeling the heat? Either way, her contradictions are glaring and her attempts to play both sides won't fool anyone paying attention. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you're tired of the woke nonsense and love seeing it called out, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. We'll see you guys in the next one.